Okay, so now to our main session for tonight. So you made a film. Now what? And you have to say it like that. Okay? So I know one of our guests fairly well, and I'm excited to hear from the other one because I've heard only wonderful things. So I'm going to bring Miss Maya up here, and she can do you just want them to come up after you? Come on up after Maya. Give a big round of applause to our guests this evening. I have photos of them up on the screen with their names. Maybe.
Great job, all these cool graphics.
Yeah.
You're
Canva.
like a graphic designer?
I'm like a Canva designer.
You're good at it.
Jamie literally does everything.
No, not true.
Alrighty, we're on to our main session. Thank you everybody for coming. I'm going to give you a short introduction for both Jason and Patrick. I'm starting with Jason. Jason has worked in the industry for more than 20 years, including, yes. Including, for the purposes of our conversation, Jason has worked with 3 different distributors: Vision Films, Curb Entertainment, and Funimation. Please welcome Jason Hudson.
Hey. Thank you.
And next to me, Patrick Ray has been in production, working in production for about 20 years, or almost 20 years, primarily as a director for nearly all of that time. Several of his recent features are available on multiple digital platforms such as Apple TV, Vudu, Amazon, and iTunes, and as well as streaming platforms Peacock, Pluto TV, Amazon Freevee, and Fandango at Home. Please welcome Patrick Ray. So I want to talk to both of you. I want to start with you, Patrick, talking about about doing film festivals and showing your films on the films festival circuit. Because we're going to Patrick because he's the only one of the two that has really had experience with that.
So I think early on, when you're making a feature film, there's a tendency to try to show at as many film festivals as possible. And I always tell people, when you're making a film, know your audience. And in the case of the films I've made, they're mostly horror suspense. So how many of you guys are familiar with Film Freeway?
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. So there's a lot of obvious choices for film festivals, but there's some film festivals that you just shouldn't waste your money on, to be honest with you. So I think it's important to target the film festivals that I think are going to take your film the farthest. And there are ways of looking and doing research on these film festivals, see which ones have been around the longest, ask people who have gone. And also there's an important distinction with film festivals. There's a lot of film festivals that are just awards that they give you, like they give you a little certificate. I would say if you make a short film, go to town. Put it in as many film festivals as possible. But with a feature, be a little bit more selective with your money, because obviously they're more expensive to enter as a feature. And you're looking for a distributor. And I think it's very, very important, if you get into a larger film festival with your film, that you attend. Because the whole point of a film festival is for you to go meet people, network, and obviously meet distributors and try to get your movie picked up. So if you're just entering film festivals just to get laurels on your poster, I think you're kind of wasting money, in my opinion. Unless, of course, again, if it's a short film, I say just enter it in as many film festivals as possible. But what I've discovered over the last few years is distributors tend to, I wouldn't say frown upon, but they don't like your movie playing in 25 film festivals. Other film festivals don't like it either. If you're trying to get into a more exclusive film festival, they want a film that hasn't really played anywhere. So I always tell people, find those film festivals, come prepared, come with business cards, posters to hand out, any swag that you can afford, of course. But it's important to attend, and obviously I always tell people, if you're up for an award, definitely be there, because 90% of the time they give the award to somebody they know is going to be there. So that's just my experience for film festivals, and I think they're important. But with my last feature, I was able to, over the years, kind of make friends with some of these film festivals, and I was able to get it into a very good film festival that I knew that we were going to get a distributor from. And then I decided not to submit to anymore because it gets very, very expensive, and you're not guaranteed to get in. So.
Sorry to interrupt. If there is a white Suburban with Johnson County plates blocking an alley outside, if that is you, can you please go move it? Thank you.
Yikes.
No, it's not.
And, okay. Good. And this question is really going to go for Jason Hudson. I'm going to start with you about this. Do you think about distribution before you make the film?
Yeah, in our case, that's kind of the approach we took. I did marketing for about 15 years before we decided, you know what, screw it, let's just go make a movie. And I had a friend of mine who was already in distribution. He kind of had a somewhat of an outlet, and so we made a movie we knew he could take and sell. And that was the approach we took. It wasn't my passion project. And since then, you know, when you make a thing, after you do about, you know, several things after that, you look back and you go, man, that first one was horrible. What the heck? Because you keep getting better and you learn from your mistakes, and so I always feel like don't do your passion project right out of the gate, because it's probably going to suck and you're going to waste it because you're passionate about that thing. Do something you know you can sell.
Right.
And that's what we did, is we knew we could sell. We made a Christmas movie. And so we go, well, it doesn't even have to be that good, you know? I mean, shoot, I hate to say that, but I mean, as long as there's a tree and a girl falls in love, what more do you want? I mean, for goodness sake. So we actually did our homework before we even wrote the script. We studied Christmas movies, and then I wasn't even really a big watcher and follower of Christmas movies, but I go, you know, how hard could it be, you know? And so, and that's what we made one. You know, you put your passion, it's a lot of work, but I knew, being a part of a couple film festivals, small ones, not anything major or big, just seeing some, you know, people getting laurels and doing this, and I'm like, I want something I can get my money back. The time I'm spending, you know, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm like, I don't have time to dick around. Let's get to it, and let's make something that we can sell. And it's hard to get a short film bought, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there are ways of getting your short film distributed, but that's a whole other thing. But you won't make, if you spend $10,000 on a short film, you're not going to make $10,000. So.
And so, you know, some of the, you know, we've Patrick and I have actually known each other for years. He's one of the nicest people you ever meet in your life. He's awesome.
You lied.
And so, I'm not. That is honest truth. The guy's great. He actually helped us edit our first Christmas movie, and it was really good. So you need to be proud of that, Patrick. Okay.
Thank you.
But it got picked up. Well, so we got a distributor, and at least in our case, we just went straight to the distributor. And, you know, we got a voice with, it was Curb Entertainment, my guy that was, you know, involved. So we didn't submit at all. We didn't, you know, try to shop it around. We just took it. We did shop it. We actually submitted to 3 different distributors and then landed with Curb. And, you know, they had been doing it for a while, and my guy Rodney said, you know, I trust these folks. And so we took it to them, and they knew somebody at Showtime, so it played on Showtime for a couple years. And you would think that would equal a lot of money, and unfortunately it doesn't. And the lesson learned was, first off, don't make too expensive of a movie. Make something that you know you can get your money back, or else you're gonna have a hard time doing it again. And the biggest lesson I learned out of the whole thing, and I think a takeaway for all you guys, is make something you know you can make today. what are the people, the resources? I mean, we did this little Christmas movie on a shoestring budget that, you know, and we were stumbling through the whole thing. I mean, I'm sitting there, I don't have a DP, so I'm filming myself as best as I can. And, you know, and we made the thing. And we like, how can we make this? I edited alongside Patrick. And we did it as good as we could make it with what we had, because I spent 10 plus years looking for an investor to give me money to make this big project. And I can't tell you how many meetings and wasted time and effort. And I regret this. My big regret is I didn't start sooner. Fail faster and just get out there and freaking go do it.
I want to second that. I mean, as far as making a film, that's, you know, don't go out and try to make a movie for $1 million with car chases and all that stuff for your first feature. Because I know a lot of people who have made first features for that amount of money and then they can't recoup. And if they want to make their second movie, they go to an investor and they say, well, how much does your first movie make? And if you can't show that you made money, they aren't going to invest in your next film. And one thing that I've learned over the years is distributors are less likely now to give you money up front. They usually do a profit share of some type. Usually 65% goes to you and 35% goes to them. And then of course they have their recoupable costs, which they spend with marketing and stuff like that. All that has to be negotiated in the contracts, which is a whole other thing to discuss at some point. But they're just not giving, unless you go to Sundance or Netflix sees your movie or something like that. But now Netflix is producing their own content, so it's a lot harder to get bought by Netflix. But you know, one feature that we did that did very, very well and ended up tripling its budget. I was like, what did we do right here? But we had the movie come out during the pandemic, and we sold to Redbox, which is no longer in existence anymore. But because we kept the budget of that movie so low, Redbox at the time was giving out like a $50,000 payment to be in all the kiosks nationwide. And if your movie is under $100,000, you've already made half your money back just on that one sale. So those are the kind of things. Obviously, Redbox isn't an option anymore. But I always tell people, for your features, don't, you know, I'd obviously build up your budgets if you can, but you know, it's about telling a good story and making something that, like Jason said, you can just go out and do and make happen.
So if we're starting with thinking about the distributor in mind at the beginning, what is it that you're thinking about as, say, the script is being written and being formed? What are those considerations?
Yeah. Try your best not to make an unsellable film.
Yeah, 100%.
And here's what I mean. I'll give some examples. If you know you're going to make a horror movie that's probably not going to be for 6-year-old girls, don't let your target try to get everybody. Make it for a specific demographic and kind of learn that a little bit. So when we were looking at Christmas movies, we started learning quickly, and then now even distributing it, we've really learned, I mean, it's a female demographic, period. Guys watch Christmas movies too, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a female dominant market, yeah. And so, you know, you make it, don't put a lot of guy humor in the movie that they want to watch. And even with our second movie, Accidental Family, you know, our distributor kind of had us tone back some of our, you know, because I'm a guy and so I'm trying to be funny. And for them, she's saying, no, this is too much. And, you know, and so anyway, all said and done, a title goes a long way. And they'll be open to change your title. I know, Patrick, you've had a title change, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're not there to make it just for you to watch. You're there to make it get sold. And if your movie never sells, you may love that thing. But if nobody else loves it, nobody else buys it, and we're not even talking about the people watching the movie. We're talking about the distributors, because that's really who you're selling. You're selling what they think they can buy, and if they're like, I don't know, you know. So if my Christmas movie was rated R, and it had some slasher stuff, we were going to have a harder time getting that sold because it didn't match what they knew they could sell. And so,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but actually the distributor is not who you're selling. I mean, they're buying it from you, but they're selling it to somebody else.
right,
Well, and in some cases, you go through a sales agent, which there's a distinction.
Ah.
If you go to a sales agent, their job is to get it to a distributor for you or make deals for you, but then they also take a cut. So it's one of those things where if you're going through a sales agent, they're also going to take 15%. One of the scariest moments I've ever had was I was at, this is when we made the movie Nailbiter. I was in the sales agent's office, and they were sitting in a room, and they had a stack of DVDs, and they were popping them in. At this point, we had already signed with them, so I was a little chill, but they were watching all these movies that had been sent to them for consideration. They'd pop it in, and they'd watch maybe 2 or 3 minutes of the movie, and then go, that's a pass. Eject the DVD, throw it, you know, go to the next one. So it's very, very important also to catch people's attention. And it's no different than writing a script. You've got to find a scene that's going to get people's attention right off the top. But I also feel like with the film, you got to have something that pops and gets people's attention. Otherwise, they just don't have time to watch your whole movie. And so if it catches them in the first 10 minutes, you have a better chance of ending up with a good distributor.
Okay. You want to add anything to that about what?
Also, Christmas slasher movies, very successful right now. Just depends on who you're going to, I guess.
right.
Yeah.
And go to a distributor that knows that market.
Right.
And I think that's probably the other thing we've learned, working with 3 different distributors. Each one kind of has a specialty. Each one kind of has a niche. Each one all 3 did different things with the movies, and we got to see it all the way, you know. And you know, there's pros and cons. You know, you're like, well, our other distributor did this, and they're like, well, you know what? Screw you. We don't care. Or vice versa, you know. And you got to kind of be a business person. I know creatives don't like hearing that. They're like, I hate math. I don't like to do my taxes. Don't make me business my creative thing. But you're not going to get very far unless you're getting hired, which I don't know if is rare. I mean, a lot of times you're making projects, right? Because you have a passion for it, and you're finding the way to get it made, right?
Obviously I reach out to investors, and that's a whole other thing. But one thing I tell people, after your film is made, it's important to make a trailer, a teaser trailer, because a lot of the times these distributors will be like, if you reach out to them, they're going to either want to see, you know, some stills from the film, a synopsis, any article that you may have been able to get out about the film, but they also want to see a trailer because they don't, again, have time to watch the whole movie. If they do ask for a screener, obviously it's important to have it password protected, so they can't download it, all that kind of stuff, and sometimes putting a watermark on it to make sure that, you know, just to protect yourself. But again, like, don't send your film to a distributor if it is not finished. I know a lot of people are like, I'm going to send this film, and there's some sound missing, and it, you know, these effects aren't quite done. You get one shot with these guys, and then that's it. So it's important to, and that goes for film festivals as well. I know they always say, well, we can look at works in progress with films, but they don't really mean it. They look at it and they'll be like, oh, why is the sound not done, or why are these effects missing? And then they just pass on the film. So it's really important to, I know people get excited and they want to get their movie out there, but it's important to have it done before you send it to people.
Okay, how do you connect with a distributor? How do you find them? How do you find how do you find the person that you call?
Okay, so
Maybe it's not a call.
that used to be a big question I didn't know the answer to. Since a few movies, I look back going, I could have called any one of these folks. You know, Lise Romanoff with Vision Films, great gal. She's one of probably 1,000 distributors that are looking for new movies, new content. they're in it. They're a numbers game, and you can just call them. The lottery of getting the opportunity for one of these, gems to like see your movie and all that stuff. A film festival to me seemed a little bit like a lottery where you had to win a lot of times to even get noticed and get existed. They're going to film festivals. But they have an office. You can call them, and you can find a lot of distributors and just call them, submit your film. They're looking. I mean, here's the honest truth is they want movies. If they don't have movies to sell, they're out of business.
I mean, IMDb Pro usually has their emails and their phone numbers listed,
Yeah.
and all the different people that work for the company, sometimes they have their emails. And again, it depends on the genre that you're selecting. In the case of horror, over the years I've learned what specific film festivals, if you get into one of these film festivals, they do a press release that spreads all over, like it's either in Variety or it's in like Deadline or one of those articles, and then all of a sudden, distributors just start emailing you. So make sure that if you're on IMDb and you have your email on there, it's the most up-to-date email because they'll most likely be looking you up to find a way to contact you. Or you tell the film festival, yes, it's okay to share my contact info. But these, depending on the film festival, these distributors will start to reach out to you based on that. In the case of, I did one family film, and we ended up, because we knew that wasn't going to be something for film festivals as much, we ended up just emailing or cold calling these distributors and finally just sending them a screener and then making a deal that way.
So in other words, just kind of cold call?
Cold call, unless, of course, like I said, you get into a big film festival and then usually they come to you.
Like even with Vision Films, they'll say, you can go and see the roster. They showcase the movies they're doing, and you can see if they're maybe more on the horror side of things, or they're more on the Christmas side of things. They're more on the whatever genre most distributors that we've seen, they do most everything, but you can look at what they're doing, and if your movie doesn't fit anything on their roster,
100%,
yeah, you either don't contact them, waste their time and yours, or you might find, oh my gosh, they've got 20 movies just like mine. How is mine going to stack up to them? And that's what they're going to look at.
And usually, don't go with the first distributor that reaches out to you,
right?
Or sales agent. Usually, you'll get sales agents emailing you, and then you'll get distributors. So there's an important distinction between the two. Sales agents are going to represent your movie and take it to market, like AFM, which just happened, and that's where they're going to try to sell your movie to a distributor. If you start making relationships with distributors over the years, you can go straight to them and bypass the sales agent. It's just very, very important, and I don't want to tell any horror stories. You mentioned changing titles. I had a distributor force me to change the title of one of my movies, and I still haven't gotten over it. It's been 7 years. I shot the movie in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was a very tough shoot, and this was a movie that I was very passionate about. And at the time, VOD was alphabetized, right? So everything starting with A. Apparently they showed me data that showed that A's and B's made hundreds of thousands of dollars more than any other letter in the alphabet because people were too lazy to scroll down to pick a movie. So
people are lazy.
So they forced us to take an A title, and maybe they were right. When it came out, it was right up there with American Honey in the category and stuff like that. But I have in my contracts now that we have to be, we have to approve the title. And those are things that you have to kind of decide over. You have to learn the hard way over time to what to put in your contracts so you don't get screwed down the line. Like for instance, if a distributor declares bankruptcy and has your movie, make sure that you have something to protect yourself. Get a lawyer when it comes to a really good entertainment attorney to go over your paperwork and your contracts. Because what they'll do is they'll send you, at least with the first time I ever went through it, it was through Lionsgate. They sent a contract and they were like, you have 48 hours to decide. I'm like, no, we don't. So we dragged it out for like 2 months because we wanted to, they want you to sign it as fast as possible. And so we had to make sure that we got sequel rights or something like that. Protect yourself, ancillary rights, which is like T-shirts and all that stuff. If your movie makes it big, like Terrifier, for instance, is a good example of a movie that all of a sudden blew up, and they kept their ancillary rights. At least I think they did, and so they're probably making a lot of more money off of that probably than they are the actual film.
What do you think is important to ask or to look for in a distributor? As you're making these cold calls and you're doing your research on them, what is important to look for?
I think it's important to talk to somebody. Find the people who actually have gone through the distributor before in the past, email them and get their opinions. Because I've had people reach out to me, so vice versa, like they'll ask me, what was it like to work with that distributor? And if they're like, yeah, they didn't pay us every quarter, then don't go with them. But if they say, we didn't get a quarterly report every quarter, well, don't go with them, because that's most likely, they're not being honest.
And again, you can see who was connected by looking at the roster. You see all the movies, and I've done that before where I go, hey, I recognize that name, or I'll reach out to this person, and yeah.
Well, you're actually friends with that distributor, right? And so that's an important thing too, is to become friends with them. So that I always say
it's not like Shark Tank where your soul is on the platter. If it's like a quick, wham bam, thank you, man, you sign your life away and you give up your voice, and you have to use body language to get this guy to say yes. That shouldn't be the distributor to go with, because this is a years-long commitment. I mean, you're literally in bed, married to this person for a long season.
Yeah. Well, so and you got to, that's one thing that I like to meet with the distributors, and right now it's more over Zoom calls or whatever. But I have a film that I'm literally delivering like right now. I've been working on it this week to a distributor, and this was a distributor. We had several reach out to us. This was the one that wanted to meet face to face. When I say face to face, Zoom call. But still, they took the time to get to know me and talk to me, and those are the kind of things. Then you start to develop, like they can see that you have a family, and they're like, well, maybe we won't screw this person over. But I mean, those are important things to think about is creating relationships. And another thing that's make friends with more than one person within the company, because turnover is outrageous. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been like in touch with somebody and they're like, that person no longer is with us. I'm like, well, they're the only ones who were telling me where things were happening. Where was my movie showing up? Because most likely your distributor will not tell you when your movie shows up on a streaming platform. You'll get your initial release, and then your movie starts kind of appearing on, like, for instance, when Belong to Us, which is the family film that I did, showed up on Peacock. The only way I found out was I Googled it. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, it's on Peacock, cool, glad they told us. And then we found out that the movie was released in Russia. Didn't tell us. It made like $100,000 at the box office for some reason in Russia. And the only way I found out was I went on Box Office Mojo, and there it was. And then I found the Russian trailer. I was like, cool, the movie's dubbed in Russian. So those are the things that you really have to be careful, and a lot of these distributors they're out to get you. And I think it was Rick Cowan told me, the only thing worse than having a distributor is having a distributor. So,
and I think that goes back to, don't let it be your passion project right out of the gate. You're gonna make mistakes. Plan on, I know I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm naive into this world. By the second, third one, you're gonna be more savvy. You'll have gone through some contracts. You'll have, I'm sure when you make something now, what you've learned, you're taking it into consideration every step of the way.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of mistakes that we made on Nailbiter, for instance, that, they put your movie through a quality control check before they can put it up on any, at the time that was just VOD, there wasn't really any streamers, but they still, like, some of these streamers are very strict. You gotta make sure that your movie is, the audio is right. If you're going to international markets, which is a whole other thing, usually, like, depending on your distributor, they may represent your movie overseas as well, but the last couple films I've done, we've separated it where I'll sign with a US distributor, and then I'll probably go with a sales agent for international, because that sales agent has to sell to Japan or Australia, and there's all these individual territories that they can sell to, right? Because your movie will most likely be dubbed, because no one likes to read. It's true. Like, I can't believe it. They actually dub every movie, and it's like, you're gonna hire actors to do all the voices? Okay.
Yeah.
But it's important in post-production. I always tell people, be prepared on the front end for distribution to keep your audio tracks, like your music, on a separate audio track, your dialogue on a separate audio track, your sound effects on a separate audio track, because what they're gonna do is they're going to mute the dialogue and then replace it with their own voices. If you've
got like your soundtrack mixed in, suddenly there's no soundtrack.
Suddenly there's no soundtrack. Suddenly, if you even footsteps, if you have to go in and sound Foley the footsteps, because if you mute the dialogue track and then all of a sudden there's no footsteps, and the people are walking on air. So what happened was, on one of my last films, we sold to Brazil, and it was one of those things where we had a couple doorknobs, hands reaching for doorknobs, that were in the dialogue track as the person was talking. So we thought, well, of course they're talking over the doorknob reach. Well, when they muted the dialogue track, all of a sudden they're not grabbing the doorknob. So we had to go back and do all that stuff, and that's obviously your 5-1 mix. 5-1 is, you have to have a 5-1 mix to sell overseas. I mean, you just
Which means,
Which is audio, 5 tracks,
okay,
surround sound.
I just want you to say what it is.
Yeah, it's less of a something you need for the U.S. because everything is obviously, they're not going to dub it.
Because
so.
it's already in English, so unless it goes to Louisiana, we're okay.
Yeah.
What is an important thing to ask your distributor? As you're meeting them and you're starting this out, what is an important thing? It's particularly for somebody, this is my first time, this is my first film that I'm going to get distributed. What should I ask them?
I always ask, how do you plan on marketing the film? There is a tendency for the distributor to want to spend, put in their contract, for instance, we're gonna spend $25,000 on marketing, and then they don't really do anything. They maybe make a poster, and they may throw out a few, pop-up ads or something, but they don't really spend any money. And then all of a sudden, you're the one who has to recoup the $25,000 before you can actually see any profit, before it gets to that split with the distributor. So it's important to ask the question, how much are you gonna spend? Try to cap it in the contract so they don't overspend. I think the contract I just signed, they're only gonna put in $5,000 of marketing, and I was like, great, because that means I don't have to recoup, that much money before we can actually start seeing some money coming in.
And you could probably hire the folks to make a great looking poster. I mean, you can piecemeal be your own.
Did you see some of the posters for the filmmaker
I
face-off?
know. Shoot, even the graphics for this thing. How did that go? Jamie, where are you at?
I mean, that is the trick, is to get such a good poster that the distributor's like, we're gonna use that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise.
Our posters sold our last movie, Accidental Family.
That's fantastic.
It was awesome, and I was like giggling when I saw it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like a little school kid again. Look at this thing. It was awesome, and it really sold the movie. It really
So
did.
Jason, same question, what should somebody ask their distributor or their potential distributor?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because especially if you've not ever done it, you'll have no idea you don't know what you don't know.
Right, but hopefully you're going to help them know something that they don't know.
Patrick gave a lot of great points. The first one is having time. You need to read the entire contract.
Yes.
don't not read it. Don't say, well, they know what they're doing.
I'm just happy my movie's getting released. Don't do that.
Right.
Because then, you know.
Have somebody else who maybe is more of a technical eye look at it, because there's a lot of jargon that you won't know right out of the gate, perpetuity, things like that, and you'll go, well, that sounds nice, and then suddenly you realize, again, don't make your passion project right out of the gate, because some of these things are going to happen. It's almost unavoidable. If right now, like, you know, with our next movie, you know, we're going to see where they're going to take it. We're going to ask them, how much do you think, realistically, give me a realistic, and they'll fluff it a little bit because they want your business, but where do you think this is going to go, and how much do you think it's going to make?
And those are good questions as well. And you know, I always ask, okay, what platforms do you think this is going to be targeted? Usually, right out of the gate, they go to like Fandango or Apple TV or all of those paid ones, and then they start going to subscription-based, like, you know, Philo or Fubo TV, which is a sports streaming service, but you still have to. It still has movies on there. But like in the case of horror, there's like Shudder and there's Screambox, and so you want to see, and they always kind of roll out things slowly. So like it may be 6 months before you're on Tubi or something like that. And you know, again, it's tougher now with television. You got on the end of it kind of with Showtime, you know, they don't really, you know,
Right.
unless it's a Hollywood blockbuster, it ends up on AMC. Now it's mostly just going to be on, like, you know.
Man, I wish
platforms.
DVDs were still a thing. We got in right as the whole DVD market was crashing, and I look back going, gosh, dang it, I could have sold probably 1 million copies of this dumb little Christmas movie on DVD. but
Walmart
now-
might still do it. You know, that's
Yeah.
the thing, is that Best Buy's gotten rid of DVDs, and this last movie I made, They Wait in the Dark, was the first movie of mine that didn't get a physical media release, and I'm pretty bummed about it. But they just, it's a money-losing thing for a lot of these companies now. So there are little boutique companies now that if you can get in your contract that you're going to keep the physical media rights and theatrical, that's another thing. If you want to show your movie in theaters and start kind of like creating some buzz for it, keep those rights in your contract, saying I want theatrical, I want physical media rights. They are going to only handle digital release, which is, you know, the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
So you can separate all that stuff out.
Mhm. You know, this is another key. No one's going to care about your movie like you do. I don't care how great this distributor is, what they've done. They might, you know, dog and pony all day long. But at the end of the day, they really don't care. You're another number in the thing. And I'm not trying to dog on distributors. They're great folks, but at the end of the day, they didn't bleed for 2 to 3 years, you know, and eat ramen noodles every night just to get this one movie made. And so we've, on both of our films, more recently, we did a premiere. We did our own kind of grassroots marketing. We got on the news. We got on radio, just, you know, talk radio where it was free, any Facebook, to get it exposure. And I think that actually helped boost the value to them, because they saw, man, look at all these people wanting to see this film. And we actually made, you know, a good chunk of money just on premieres. You know what I mean? Now, the movie had to be good.
Yeah.
And you had to market to the people, but anyway, go ahead.
Okay, we have a few minutes left before we open it up to Q&A, and I want you guys to touch on, and I know this is a huge topic, so I'm sorry, deliverables.
Okay.
Nobody told me about deliverables.
Sorry.
No, nobody tells you about deliverables.
They
I
don't
learned that
until
stuff
you
in
have
film
to
school.
deliver them.
If you've ever been through the distribution process, the word deliverables, it always makes everyone kind of groan inside. You get a list, you know, once you sign your contract, you'll get a list of deliverables from whichever company you sign with. And it's a combination of the hard materials, which is obviously your movie, which they will have specs for. They will tell you that we need to have, you know, your movie exported in, and for some reason, distributors still like 1920 by 1080. You can shoot your movie in 6K all you want. 90% of the time, they may want 4K, The last couple distributors are like, don't send us the 4K. They just want 1920 by 1080. I think Netflix might be a little bit different. They want all your audio tracks separated, so they want you to send a music track, your music and effects track, which is the music and the sound effects, then just your effects track, then your dialogue track.
And there's guys who know how to do this.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
don't
obviously
have
your
to,
sound guy just mutes those specific channels and then they don't call them audio, they call them audio stems. And for the first time I did this, I'm like, what are they talking about, stems? What are stems? And finally,
are we in cell research right now? What's going on here?
But then, they'll want the trailer, and if you're doing international, they're gonna want sections of the movie that, where you have your credits and all that stuff. They want those sections without the credits. Just those sections, or if you have like a scene where people are speaking a different language or whatever, they're gonna want those without any text because they're gonna be adding, whichever country will be adding their own credits and all that stuff. And that includes the trailer. They're gonna want the trailer with no, title over it. It's just gonna be a blank slate, and then they add, like, in the case of Belong to Us, the title in Russian. Those are things that they'll want. Paperwork-wise, and that's why I always tell people, be prepared, and I'm sure Jason can second this. Make sure you have your location agreements ahead of time. Make sure you have your actor agreements ahead of time. If you've gone through SAG, make sure you have all your SAG paperwork. They may not always ask for it, but it's good to have it. In the case of Nailbiter, I had to turn in every actor contract. Unfortunately, Lionsgate then decided they didn't like the actor contract I had, and then said, here, have them all sign this one, which meant I had to track everybody down again. You need to have your music agreements, so if you have any songs in the movie, you got to have those license agreements to prove that you have the rights to use the movie, the songs in the movie. Then they tell you need something like a billing block. Do you remember the billing block? Which is just what you see at the base of the poster with with everybody's credits. But I'm like, why are you calling it a billing block? So I thought it had something to do with billing, and so I had to find out the hard way that it's just your credits. And you're like, oh, well, that's easy. Why not just call it that? But anyway, those are the things that you start to figure out. But it's a lot of paperwork, and it's a lot of they'll put your movie through quality control. If you flunk, which I have in the past, then they can go through it again and fix all the problems with your movie so that, there was a moment in Nailbiter where there was a lightning strike that was too bright for television, and we failed for that reason. And we were so fed up, they said, well, we'll just do it on our end, and they charged us $750 just to fix that one shot.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Deliverables, I've learned, is almost just as difficult as making the movie itself. I'm serious. Because you're editing, you're re-editing. If you do your own Foley, I did on Accidental Family, it took me weeks. Even on Artlist, you go to Artlist, you get, gazillion free sound effects. You drop those in and you make your own track. It's doable. First off, know this. Making a movie, you can do it. You're hearing a lot of stuff. You might be freaking out. You can pull this off. Make something you can sell. Do it as cheap as you can possibly do it. Don't screw anybody, but work with people you like. Work with people that you've networked with. You guys are all in that same boat together. And if it wins, you're all winning at the same time. If it crashes and burns, you're kind of all crashing and burn. Do a couple projects because you're gonna have some bumps along the road. Learn those early on, and then go, okay, the thing I really wanted to make, movie 3 or 4, and you have all your contracts, you have all your stuff, and you go, okay, that thing in the contract burned me, or I'm going to renegotiate my years. How many years is the distributor going to hold it? Are they going to hold it for 10 years, or are they going to hold it for 2 years?
Yeah, I think our Nailbiter contract was 15. So it varies depending on what you can negotiate.
And the crazy thing, we couldn't touch our movie. I couldn't go and sell it on Amazon myself. It is my own movie, but I can't sell it because it's tied up with these people until it's out of contract.
Those are all really good points. Kind of scary. I'm not gonna kid you, but I'd like to open this up now to Q&A. but I can't see any of you.
I have a question.
Yeah?
Yes.
What if someone says, screw you, I'm making my passion project first?
Because they will.
I would
Yeah,
say
because we will.
if you make your, first off, you're going to be passionate about whatever it is you make. If you're a creative, I'm a creative. I get it. I paint, I write music. It all sucks, but here's the deal. Point is, you're not going to not be passionate about it. And I think even if you make something that's maybe not in your wheelhouse, but you go, I could probably pull this off, you're going to get passionate about it. But if you do want to do your passion project, regardless of whatever it is you're going to make, do your homework first. Have 10 examples of previous movies, and don't go to the biggest ones that made millions of dollars. Go to ones that
Previous movies that are similar to yours.
Right. Don't go, oh, I'm going to make the next Napoleon Dynamite. They made millions of dollars.
They call that comparables, and if somebody asks, what's your comparables, rather than just say, what movie is this like?
Yes.
They mean what, comparable means.
And you have to give
Yeah.
that answer.
Yeah.
You really do. And as you're pitching it to these people, if they don't know what your movie is, and you're not able to say it's like fill in the blank, you don't know it, and that goes for the script. So, if you're going to make a PG animated film for kids, don't put a bunch of F-bombs and, bloody guts falling all over the place. That's Patrick's job for his movies. Okay, next question.
Next question.
Yeah, when it comes to deliverables, is that something that's going to be on your end? If, say, like, some of the characters are maybe like reading a book or like looking at a poster or something to that effect. Does that come on your end or?
Oh, you're talking about like if there's a copywritten image?
So I'm gonna
No,
repeat
more like,
his question.
If there's a plot-driven point that's maybe like a book or something like that, like, is it going to be on you to like try and make that a blank slate for them to translate?
I see what you're saying. You mean in
Oh.
terms of like, no,
You
that
mean
you
for
don't
international?
have to, you don't have to worry about that.
They'll just put a subtitle. Like,
Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
That is asking a lot. That they won't do that. But one thing that they will be careful. This brings to another point. E&O insurance is something that all
What is E&O
distributors
insurance?
errors and omissions, which
Thank
is
you.
basically if your movie all of a
What's
sudden.
your price range on that? This isn't like a $50 a month.
I mean, it usually
Thing.
costs $3,000 per. I mean, that's about right.
That's about right.
But you can
3,000.
negotiate with your distributor. Usually what has happened in the past is that they have their own insurance policies now. My last two movies, they have had their own E&O insurance that covers the films that they're representing, which is great because it saves us money. But I've also had it where we've had to negotiate with the distributor and say, you pay for E&O insurance and we'll pay for the MPAA rating, which is obviously like when you show your movie to the ratings board, Nailbiter got an R rating, Belong to Us got a PG-13, but that also cost $3,000. So you're like, okay, you take the E&O insurance and we'll take the rating and we're square. But yeah, you usually have to have E&O, but if you're lucky, the company that you're going with already has it.
what is E&O insurance?
Okay, sorry, I probably did describe it. Like, imagine if you had like a Pepsi can in the background, little things like that are copywritten. If you're in a gas station and all of a sudden you're walking down the aisle and you have all these different products and stuff
Brands.
like that. Yeah, so
And someone wants to sue your movie, the E&O insurance usually is like a $3 million aggregate in the first year, right?
Yeah.
And then $1 million after that. So meaning Coca-Cola could sue the movie because they didn't agree to have their logo in your film.
And
So-
sometimes they'll just say, well, you favored Pepsi over Coke. So if you want to you just put a Pepsi can and a Coke next to each other, then they can't say anything. But yeah, it's always like, well, why did you favor this product
Yeah.
over that? Which is why you always have people taking down beer signs and stuff like that in the background. Try to be
Yeah.
careful with it. But
Stickers
sometimes
over a laptop.
yeah, sometimes you just can't help it.
It's why
Sometimes-
TV shows always make up their own brand of beer.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, on the topic of like, don't start off with your passion project.
Uh-huh.
There's this Taika Waititi quote I hear quoted a bunch, where he says like, he made Thor Ragnarok, and someone asked him about that in comparison to like his other films, and he he said, yeah, one for them, one for me.
Yeah.
And I was just, wondering, like, what your experience is around, like, that. Like, have you sort of made a film and worked with these, like, really strict guidelines and worked with the producers and whatnot, and then, I guess, down the line, do people sort of, like, see you as, like, okay, these people know what they're doing, like,
I
they give
mean,
you, like, free reign, or,
no. I mean, I would say, like, it just depends. Like,
He's not working for Marvel, unfortunately.
yeah, not yet. No. But one of my films, I was able to get a reasonable sized budget based off the quality of the previous film, if that's what you mean. But I try to treat all my projects as passion projects because I have to spend so much time on this thing. And I'm usually the editor as well. So if I'm not passionate about it, and if I'm not saying, you know what, if this is my last movie, I'm okay. You have to kind of think that way about your project, and so I'm always kind of like, because you're with it for so long, and a lot of the times you have to spend so much time raising the money, because it takes years. So I guess my whole thing is that I feel a lot of emotional connection to whatever project I'm doing, just because I can't just
time. It's like a little puppy. If a puppy walks in and you spend about 5 weeks with it, well, you're not gonna let that thing go.
I mean, even the ones that I've been like approached to direct, for instance, there's a couple projects I've
5 weeks?
Okay, 5 seconds.
20 minutes. Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
But I think that's the point that I guess you're saying you're gonna get passionate about it because you've spent so much time invested in. You can't not strip out, it's just like anything. You pour so much of yourself into it, you're gonna get passionate about it, and you want to be proud of it at the end of the day because it's probably gonna outlive you.
I guess what Jason's trying to say is no matter what project you take on early on, just be aware that there's gonna be mistakes. And we're here to kind of help you
negate
dodge
some of
those mistakes that we've made over because nobody told us.
And don't be afraid of the mistakes. And I think that's probably, I was afraid to launch because I thought I had to have it all put together. I had to get all the big budgets, get all the right people, and it didn't come out that way. It was getting friends, getting people I knew, and making what we could make with what we had, instead of waiting for someone else to acknowledge.
Yeah, no one's gonna.
I exist.
The phrase is the cavalry is not coming. And
That's
so
a great point.
Yeah,
I love
and
that.
you just have to go out and make it happen because
Yeah.
99.9% of the time, no one's gonna hand you anything. So
Yeah.
one of my last features came about because I was so frustrated trying to raise money for a different project. And we hit this, the SAG strike, the writer's strike, we had COVID, and we had all these things happen all in a row, and finally I'm like, hell with it, we're gonna go out and just make this happen. And so, I mean, I think if you have to will things into existence sometimes, and I think that's kind of the way to go, because, most likely somebody's not gonna just call you up and say, here's $1 million, I liked your short film, here's $1 million. That happens almost, I mean, that is like winning the lottery.
It is. It's winning the lottery, and it's probably. I bet if a
It's probably
statistician,
less. It's probably
did the
less
numbers,
likely.
it's probably winning the lottery a few times. And here's the: if you've not ever made a movie, you'll never raise a dime. I mean,
it's great making short films. I always tell people go out and really. I still make short films mainly because I just enjoy doing it, but like. Go out and make as many short films as possible, and then you're maybe making some of those mistakes on the short film versus a feature film. So.
yeah.
Other questions?
Hey guys, in regards to the world we live in now, which is very driven by social media and YouTubes and TikToks and all the things, what advice would you give to the room on when is the appropriate point when it's the right decision to go to a distributor versus doing it yourself? A lot of people probably are thinking, especially when you start talking about E&O and entertainment attorneys and all those additional fees that are going to be coming up front as you start entering this realm. So when is the right time to take that step versus self-promoting on a platform like YouTube and paying them to do it for you?
Well, and first off, to your point,
He's behind the camera. So his question is, when is the right time to go to a distributor versus trying to self-distribute? Is that a shorter way of saying it? Okay.
I think self-distributing your short films is obviously the way to go. You can obviously sign non-exclusive, and I always tell people sign non-exclusive deals for short films because then you can still show it. I mean, there's short film platforms now that they take short films and they bundle them into like a 90-minute feature or anthology. But like as far as like, are you talking about basically like going on YouTube, making YouTube videos
Yeah,
and just?
it's just like, what do you think is the right time that you really want to go to a distributor? Knowing the extra fees and the cost associated with doing
The
that.
formats that you've mentioned, though, are primarily for short,
Primarily for short. So I guess,
right?
Yeah.
I guess,
But they're mostly speaking to features.
Yeah.
So I think
what
if
is-
you're
so what
trying
is that-
to-
So let me flip that question and say, then what do you as a filmmaker need to expect doing a feature from a fee standpoint and what you're getting yourself into, and how many upfront fees are gonna be there going into the distribution process?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, you got to be prepared for it.
Can I hop in?
Sure.
There's this really cool new thing called AI. And I'm serious when I say it's probably going to end up being better than any attorney could draft a contract. Get ready to read a lot of contracts, see what's going on with all the points. But there's ways to do it cheaper. Technology's getting to that place where anybody can make a movie. And so if you're waiting to make the perfect movie and you're waiting to get the perfect cast and you're waiting to get the money, you'll probably never get it, especially if you've never done it before. We had a hard time just getting in the room to try to ask for money because we had never done it before. Even though I had almost 20 years of video production experience, I had done thousands of videos. They could care less. They're like, I want to see a movie, and now we have the data to show it. We go, here's what we spent, we made our money back, and if you, to your point earlier, make that first thing as cheap as you can possibly do it, as good as you can possibly do it. If it looks like crap, you'll probably not make your money back.
So in terms of fees and stuff like that, obviously you've got your E&O insurance. Most likely now they're not going to do a rating on your movie because if it's strictly for streaming, they won't do that unless, they probably won't do a rating unless it's going to get a theatrical release. So you've got your E&O insurance, which you can negotiate and say, look, you guys cover that. But that means it's added to that recoupable fees like the marketing and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, and now with the way things are, the way I deliver the movie is over a file share system. Like I had to download this thing called CyberDuck this week, and it's like that you have to locate their shared folder and start uploading all that stuff. Before you had to mail hard drives and just pray it got there, And if
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I
Okay.
think there's a lot of people just probably wondering, if there was.
When do you take the leap from being a YouTuber to a filmmaker? Would that be maybe another
When you have
approach?
to make your money back.
When you're ready to make the.
Yeah.
there's never a good time. You just have to do it.
Well,
And
and yeah, if you look at it, okay, you're in the furniture business. You got a lot of drawings of furniture. Eventually, you're going to have to build the damn chair. You see what I mean? And it's easier to sell a chair when you've got it instead of presenting the concept of a chair. They're like, I got to sit in it. I got to feel it. You know what I mean? Give them a test drive. And so go make the movie. Now, to your point, if you've never touched a camera, you've never directed anything, you've never acted, don't expect, man, I've loved all these movies. This looks easy enough. You go do the practice, do the homework, get good at your craft. So all of this is contingent on you're good at your craft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, like there's going to be, I always say be prepared on the back end when you're going through deliverables and all that stuff to spend $5,000 maybe if you're, just have that in the back of your mind. You're going to have that saved up. You're going to have money saved up for film festival entries, which a lot of people don't really think about. But again, if you're doing, a feature, you want to target those bigger festivals. And again, Film Freeway is great in the way that you can look up the film festival, find out if it's been around a long time, and so you're not just throwing money at all these different film festivals and spending thousands of dollars when you really should just be
Right,
targeting.
and there is that as what you were saying with the distributors about coming to you, saying, oh, come into our festival, we'll give you a little discount, but you're just another number.
Right.
All of this is made possible through our partnerships, our community partnerships, our donations, hopefully grants in the future, but specifically our members. This meeting is free and open to the public because we are able to do that because we have members. So there are benefits to membership, like discount tickets to events. You can vote in the IFC elections. You can run for an IFC office. You get discounts for film competitions. You get to be a part of this vibrant community and know that you are supporting local filmmakers here in Kansas City. And then outreach into the communities. You also get discounts around town. Currently, we still have access, and hopefully again, to Masterclass Online. I'm making my way through David Lynch right now, which is fabulous. He's so weird. I love him so much. So we are always trying to look for things that can help you help yourself on this filmmaking journey, because it's really hard to do.
Okay, I want everybody to give, I'm sorry, we're out of time, and I want to give a big thank you to our panel. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.